curious in your thoughts on oil moving forward. Some people are calling for higher prices. Some people think we're going to get a crash if there's some announcement of an agreement. There's been a lot of insider trading. I think the DOJ just decided to probe, but I don't know how impartial they are in that situation. But yeah, curious in your thoughts on oil.
Well, you're the master of understatement when it comes to that. I mean, the corruption in this White House exceeds even that we had with the Biden crowd, and that was pretty bad. So I think many of these New York City money moguls that are running around the White House are undoubtedly profiting enormously from this catastrophe. We all already know that the Trump family has its investments in various things, and they've made a lot of money from this disaster. In the meantime, the American population standard of living continues to fall. That's the biggest issue. And inflation is rising. I don't see how you arrest that. Because every time you suggest, well, we need to raise interest rates, the Fed needs to involve itself in that process, people say if you do that, we'll all go under. We'll go bankrupt. We can't survive it. This is a key point that people are missing. Cheap energy is critical to any civilization. I mean, that's always been true. 1,000 years ago it was cheap labor, cheap manpower. Today it's cheap energy. If you don't have cheap energy, you don't have cheap interest rates. In other words, you don't have cheap credit. If you're BlackRock right now, you're running out of liquidity. They've stopped paying out money to any of their investors. They've said right now we can't do it. And they're trying to borrow from banks against the assets they have under management. Now stop and think about that. So you have a couple of $1 billion under management, but you don't have a couple of $1 billion. You have properties. You have investments out there, but you can't easily liquidate those. So you're short when it comes to cash. Suddenly your investor comes up and says, I want my money. Well, I can't pay you. Why not? Well, times are hard right now. I don't have the cash. What is the impact on the public of that statement? I mean, we're headed down a very dark road. So if we don't have credit, people can't borrow at low interest rates, everything tends to stop. And that's where we're headed. Now, at the same time that you're trying to lower interest rates, you got a problem with bonds because you want to attract investment. To do that, you have to raise the yields. Well, we're up to 4.3% or something in the 10-year bond. Most of the people that are experts in the area say if we hit 5%, we're done. We can't pay the interest on the debt. We have a $39 trillion debt. And for the last, I would say easily 10 years, every time somebody like me brought up this matter of the national sovereign debt, everybody said, you just don't understand modern economics. Debt doesn't matter. Well, I think we're about to get a lesson the hard way that debt very much matters. Now, I don't know what the president is going to discuss with the Chinese because the Chinese still own a substantial portion of our debt. Most of our debt is owned by the pension funds and insurance companies here in the United States. And you know who has their money in all of this stuff? The famous 401ks. Mm-hmm. All of your retirees, the people we call boomers in the United States, they stand to lose their shirts unless something radical takes place. And radical means you've got to cut back on spending. And you got to start somewhere. And I can tell you, Darryl, they'll start first with defense. Well, you're not going to get there by maintaining these endless wars overseas, particularly when they're losers.
Yeah, for sure. So with the bonds and with the U.S. debt, I mean, I was looking at a graphic from Visual Capitalist recently that showed by 2052, the national debt is scheduled to be at like 185 trillion or something of that nature. Those are massive numbers. And so
we'll never get there, Darryl. Come on.
Yeah.
We're never going to get there. This is going to fall apart before that. It's impossible. I mean, that's what nobody wants to say. Well, in 2030, where do you think you're going to be in 2027, 2028? You better worry about what's coming in front of you because you combine this wasteful stupidity overseas In a war you can't win because the country you've attacked is the size of Western Europe, has 93 million people in it. It's a developed society. It's a civilizational society that's been around for over 2,000 years. It's surrounded by mountains like the Rockies. And to the south, you have practically impassable deserts with the highest temperatures in the world. Oh, sure, this is easy. What are you, completely nuts? Anyone with an ounce of common sense would know that. But the problem is we have too many people that want to bet too heavily on what we call air supremacy. The notion, well, we can bomb from high altitude and they can't touch us. So I think that's going to end too. But for the moment, we can still get away with some of that. But this is not an answer. That doesn't induce people to support your position. It doesn't win friends and influence. It's destructive, but without a purpose. It's pointless destruction. And that's what we've been involved in. And the people that we were working with who've been very helpful to us over the last, I would argue, 30, 40 years, and I'm talking about the Gulf states on the other side of the Gulf from Iran, they have offset the cost of a lot of the, what is it called? The engineering that is not repetitive. In other words, the initial research and development that goes into most of our exotic weapons and missiles is being paid for by the Gulf Emirates and the other small states in the Gulf that have invested heavily in our hardware. They've done that in return for the promise that we gave them that we would protect them. Well, we have failed to protect anybody. That's the problem. We can't protect the Saudis. We can't protect anybody. Al Jubail is a huge port in Saudi Arabia on the Gulf. It's a very important port, very modern. It has refineries. Most important, it has a very, very large desalination plant. Almost 90% of the water people drink in the capital of Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, comes from that plant. That plant could be attacked and destroyed in less than 30 minutes. And then no one has any water to drink in Riyadh. And that's the tip of the iceberg. Once you hit these desalination plants in that part of the world, no one can live there. There were 67 million people living on the west side of the Gulf, from the border of Oman in the south up to the border with Iraq. I don't think half of them are still there. But if this progresses to another slug match with Iran, that will go completely out of business. Right now, the estimates are it'll take between 2 and 5 years to recover from the damage that's already been done in the Persian Gulf. If this returns to the former level of intense warfare that we've seen in the past, the recent past, and it lasts for a week or two, and the damage ensues that I'm talking about, we won't see any recovery there for at least 10 years. And we can be absolutely positively sure that we will not be back to do anything in the Gulf. That's over.
Yeah. Okay. So last thoughts on gold. Are you still buying gold right now? What's your view on gold?
Well, I've invested substantially in it. And I could buy some more. But I've already invested substantially in it, and I think I'm in a good position right now. I could add some other things to it. Certainly could add, some mining stocks. Gold mining, I think, is going to skyrocket. I also think that people should look into other precious metals. I mean, obviously, I've invested in silver. That has a different kind of longevity from gold. But anytime you buy gold at this particular stage, you're going to be fine. It's going to go, I think, to 6,000 or beyond. I'd be surprised if it didn't. And it's going to be very helpful to have that. It's also very helpful to have a lot of cash right now, because that's going to become scarce. I'm concerned that we may see conditions similar to what we saw in the Depression, where suddenly banks were closed. People rushed to the banks to get their money out, and then President Roosevelt closed the banks, said there's a 2-week holiday to try and cool everything down. And then there were limits on what you could withdraw. So, certainly gold is very, very important. And if you haven't bought gold to this point, there's still tremendous upside. You can buy it. Now, somebody said, well, do you think it'll fall back a bit? I'm sure it will. I think also something else that we don't talk very much about, I think Bitcoin will survive. I think when the stock market goes and we see a 40, 50, 60% drop in the value of stocks, which I think is coming, the stock market is going to sit in the dumps for a while. Bitcoin won't, because Bitcoin is the only other potentially viable storage of wealth other than owning the hard metal. And doing business with the hard metal, I'm talking about the average human being, is not easy. Although I was reminded the other day that with a small bag of, say, 2 or 3 ounces of gold in 1929 in Berlin, you could buy a 6,000 square foot house.
Wow. Yeah.
But the currency wasn't worth anything anymore.
Yeah.
So the only way you could quote unquote, in Donald Trump's annoying terms, make a deal was with gold. So I don't think you can go wrong if you invest in gold. I don't think you can go wrong if you invest in gold mining stocks. But then I would also look at other areas like uranium, other metals, precious metals, everything from bauxite to aluminum and copper. These things, I think when we were together at that conference, I tried to tell people, if it comes out of the ground, whether you're growing food or mining gold or some other precious metal, that's worth having.